The broadcast is now starting. All attendees are in listen-only mode.
Hello, and welcome to another edition of Lab Manager Academy webinars, the brainchild of Lab Manager magazine. My name is Gayle Thomas. I am the events manager for Lab Manager magazine, and once again, I will be sitting in for your regular host, Jeff Tobe. I promise you all that he will be returning shortly. We have topped our record today with over 1,200 registrants. I want to thank you all for your support, and please continue to spread the word. Today's webinar is Making Time Work for You. Before I introduce our presenter, please know that she welcomes your questions throughout her presentation. Many of you know the drill, but for those of you just joining us, all you have to do is simply type your query into the question box, and we will try to get to it during our short time together. If we don't have time for your question, our speaker will receive your questions offline and will answer you via email. Every webinar is posted up on the web about a week after airing, so you can view the entire presentation again if you like, and I would encourage you to forward the video to your colleagues. You will receive an email letting you know when the video is available for your viewing pleasure. This webinar series would not be possible without the support of Unity Lab Services. Now we will hear a few words from Fran Ebert, the Global Market Manager at Unity Lab Services.
Thank you, Gayle. We're very proud to be a sponsor of such a valuable educational webinar series for lab managers, and I'm really excited about today's topic on making time work for you because we've really developed our new service brand, Unity Lab Services, specifically to provide tools that maximize your workflow and free up precious time. So this is a great combination of topics here. We recognize, of course, that lab managers are asked to balance a very large variety of activities to achieve the best results within a lab. Our vision is a lab where your teams are enabled to work on top priorities and focus on everything that you need to focus so that you can have streamline your non-core work. Our solutions really can enable your lab to leverage our best practices. We've been working with thousands of labs over 100 years, which will allow you to eliminate time and trial and error on processes. We can help with streamline supply management, really eliminate time and supply ordering processes that you might have to do on a daily basis by setting up well-stocked, well-managed supply rooms that are very close to point of use. We also have a lot of experience in streamlining instrument and equipment service management, where with one call, you can request a service on any instrument or equipment, regardless of manufacturer, and let our team really handle the scheduling, following up on any service needs, and the on-site hosting of a service provider. So we categorize these services into 4 enterprise service product lines that you can see on your screen. We offer them at the lab, site, or enterprise level. And all of our services are vendor agnostic, which means that we provide them for all equipment in a lab, regardless of manufacturer, to provide service solutions without boundaries. So as you can see, we've got consulting services, supply management services, asset management services, and scientific support services. In addition, of course, we have our traditional instrument-level service offerings, such as support plans, training, parts, and accessories. So we'd be happy to talk to you about service solutions that can save your team's valuable time and enable them to focus on their top priorities, all while controlling costs. To learn more, please visit www.unitylabservices.com, and please enjoy today's webinar. Thank you.
Thanks so much for all your support, Fran. So let's get on with the reason you are here. Our speaker today, Dr. Gayle Carson, is known as a practical and enthusiastic proponent of great time management. Featured on ABC, NBC, Fox, and CBS, and in Newsweek, The Wall Street Journal, and USA Today, she will provide you with tips and techniques that everyone can use and choose from. A radio show host and columnist, Gayle specializes in how-to information that is real world and works. Welcome, Dr. Gayle Carson.
Thanks so much, Gayle. I really appreciate being here, and hi to everybody out there. You notice that I have on the slide time mastery, and it's interesting because when we talk about making time work for you, it really means that you have to take control. And when you take control of something, it means mastering it. And we all have this issue. I have it. Everyone has it. So today I'm going to give you a lot of hints and a lot of tips, but they're not going to work unless you actually do them. So hopefully you're going to identify with them and see and say, oh yeah, that's me and I need to really work on that. So let's get started, and I'm going to do that by telling you to first do a time log. Now, you just have to do this for 2 weeks, but the reason that you do this is so that you can figure out what it is you're really doing. I keep a time log still to this day, 7 days a week and almost 24 hours a day. I write down everything I do when I talk to friends, if I go out to a theater or a movie, or if I'm working on writing, or if I'm on the telephone with a client, or anything that I'm doing. If I'm doing my email, whatever I do, I write it down and how long it takes. And the reason for that is to see where I'm really spending my time, because you think you know where you're spending it, but you really don't. So I don't want you to do this like I do every single day for the rest of your life, although this is my business, so that's why I do it, because I'm always trying to get better at it. But you're doing it to see where your time is really going. And I'm going to talk about this as we go through the program today, because it has a lot to do with where your time is disappearing. So one of the things that this is going to do is it's going to identify your strengths and your weaknesses. Where are you spending your time that you shouldn't be, and where are you not spending your time that you should be? Because it's very, very important to know where the things that are what I call big payoffs are in your day. So this will allow you to get a sense of your day. You will get an idea of what is really happening, and you're going to find there is a pattern. After you do this for 2 weeks, there will be a pattern, and you're going to discover a tremendous amount of information about yourself and your peers and your subordinates. So it's a good way of looking at things, and I cannot emphasize how important doing a time log is. It's also very important because you're going to discover what are you doing over and over again that A, you shouldn't be doing, and B, possibly could be done by someone else or should be done by somebody else. And thirdly, it also may give you an idea that, gee, I really ought to put this somewhere in some kind of folder or format or operation manual or something where I don't have to keep repeating the same thing over and over. If you find that you are repeating the same tasks over and over and over that you shouldn't be, then they should be put somewhere, whether it's in written form or however you decide to do it. It's got to be done, so that will give you a little more time to work with and to deal with. Now, one of the things that you're going to find as you do your time log is that you're going to find you do a lot of interruptions. Now, the interesting thing about interruptions are the question you have to ask is what is interrupting me more important than what I'm doing now? That's the key factor. If you do that, you're going to be so amazed at, well, why is this person coming in? So I want you to write down those interruptions. Again, we're doing this for just 2 weeks, so you can figure out what is taking up your time in a day. And the interesting thing that you're going to find is that they're the same people over and over again. There are certain people who are very self-motivated and self-functioning, and they never come in and interrupt you. They solve their own issues. But there are people that will come in for every little detail. And so who are those people? Why are they interrupting you? Is it necessary? In other words, could they figure out this solution by themselves? And then you have to ask yourself, what can be eliminated? Because what happens is, and I'm not sure whether you can do this in your line of work or not, but for example, if someone comes in and asks you something that really isn't as important as what you're doing at the time, and you say, well, I can't really talk to you about this now, but come back in 2 hours or 3 hours or at the end of the day. People will figure it out by themselves because they don't want to wait, and they don't want to come at the end of the day because they want to go home. So the important thing is what and who are interrupting you. Is it that important? Is it something that they are supposed to know on their own, or is it something that you really have to get involved in? And interruptions, if you can clear those things up, you're going to see that you're going to pick up at least another 30 minutes or an hour in your day. And I remember when I was interviewing a prospective client, I was in his office, and this may not be your situation because you may not have secretaries, but he must have called his assistant 15 times while I was in there for 30 minutes. I only was there for a half hour. And he kept asking her, well, bring me this, bring me that, bring me this. And I can tell you, if he had thought about why he was interviewing me in the first place, he would have had all of this prepared on his desk. His assistant was very, very competent. She could have gathered all of this information, brought it in, and it would have been there for him. And we spent at least 20 minutes of the 30 waiting for him to get all of this information. So it's important that you look at these interruptions and say which are really necessary and which aren't. Now, we hope that the first hour of your day is the most productive, because if it isn't, you feel like the whole day is just going to go to waste. So you really need to look at that first hour. And when you walk in that door, are you really prepared for what you're supposed to be doing, and are you focused towards that goal? And it is so important, because if you aren't starting the very first hour with the most important things on your agenda, then you just aren't going to get everything that you need to get done in that hour and in the rest of the day. And it's so crucial that you do that. And of course, one of the reasons, we said that a time log and to look at how you're spending your day, it forces you to walk through your day. And so when somebody comes into you and says, do you have a minute? You know whether you do or you know whether you don't. So it's very key to make sure that first hour is the most productive and that it is focused towards the goal that you are working on. Now, key factor here are your prime hours. What are your best times? What are your worst times? In other words, some people are just great first thing in the morning and they kind of lag back after 2 o'clock, after lunch. We call that the me-go hour. My eyes glaze over. And so you might be saying, wow, I just can't really think that you need to, get started with something. So some people get up at 4 o'clock in the morning to write. And some people don't get started until noon, or a lot of people are night owls. I know you can't be that, but many of you are night owls. So it's important. It's important for you to know your best time. So do your best work at your worst time, because your best work you do automatically. Do it well. You like it. It's easy for you. Your worst work is at your best time, because you're really feeling full of vim and vigor, and you are really able to tackle the things that either A, you don't like to do, or B, you're not comfortable doing. So prime hours is very important. For example, I always exercise first thing in the morning. I've already done my workout this morning because it's so important for you to do. For me, if I say I'm going to do it at 5 o'clock or 6 o'clock or 7 o'clock, I don't do it. I don't do it because by that time I'm exhausted and I don't want to work out. But when I do it first thing in the morning, it's great. I write the best in the middle of the afternoon. So I will spend the hours from 2 to 4 in the afternoon writing. So you need to really look at this and see what your best hours are. Now, you did your time lock. You saw what your tasks were. You've looked at what people come in and interrupt you with. So whatever is on your to-do list, and you all need to make to-do lists, you need to prioritize them. So everything is either an A or a B or a C. Now, for example, an A is something that's both urgent and important. And a B may be urgent but not important, or important but not urgent, and C's are just going to go away. Now, can a C become an A? Absolutely. Let's take your car, for example. If you have to get tires, it's a C. It's not right there on your radar screen. But the minute you get a flat, it may become an A. So things change. But let's just say, for argument's sake, that everything on your list is an A. You are going to have to rank it. What's A1? What's A2? What's A3? And no matter what, you must do A number 1 first. Now maybe that's what you do your first hour when you come in because it is the most important, or perhaps it is your prime hour, or whatever it happens to be. But you must prioritize, you must rank, and that's very important. And at least if you get the A's done, you will know you've accomplished the most important and the most urgent things. On the other hand, what most people do is they have a list and they're just happy to cross things off. That doesn't mean they're really accomplishing what they need to. They've just crossed a lot of things off their list. And remember, the C's are neither urgent or important and are not going to be so until some crisis happens that is on your list. So I cannot emphasize how important your to-do list is, prioritizing, and ranking. Now, many of you probably don't use paper anymore, but there are a lot of things that come to you in paper form. So the problem is there is nothing that is guaranteed to grow so fast without food and water as paper. So you need to make a decision on every single piece of paper. So I would suggest that you've got 3 choices. You dump it, you delegate it, or you end up placing it in a file. And usually there are 3 kinds of files that you need to have. One is a reading file. I'm going to get to it later. I'll read it later. One is a correspondence file. I need to respond to it, and I will get to it when I do my correspondence. And the third place is to file it. So you dump it, you delegate it, or you place it in the files on your desk, which are the 3 that I've mentioned, or into a filing cabinet. The important thing is don't let paper control you. I mean, some people come in and they see all this mess on the desk, and I must tell you, I am the first to let paper get out of sight. I mean, I love piles. I mean, I just think piles are great. And so I have to be very conscious of this. This is probably the worst thing in my time management control, and that's what to do with all the paper. And I don't care what they've told you about paper is going away and everything is electronic and you're not going to deal with paper. Most of us end up having to print things out, and then we don't know what to do with it. So that's one of the reasons why I'm saying that paper is so important, and knowing what to do with it. So we have to learn to write everything down. Now, whether you do it electronically and you keep it in a file, that's up to you. But the mind considers writing it down a completion. It's just a psychological thing. And some of you get brilliant brainstorms in the middle of the night, and if you don't write them down, you forget what they are. But if you have a pad and paper right next to your bed and you write down this idea that came to you, you never even have to look at that paper when you wake up in the morning because your mind has sealed it. And so that's one of the reasons why you need to write every single thing down that you need to remember. And again, brilliant brainstorms are fantastic. So make sure you capture them. And that's another reason why you need to carry something with you to write something down when you get them. I get my best ideas on airplanes. And so I always have a pad of paper and pencil that I can write something down. And if you have different things for different people or different projects or different ideas, put them on one sheet so they're all there for you. For example, let's say that you have an employee that's working for you, and let's name him John Doe. And there's a lot of things that you need to discuss with John, or that you notice about John, or need to be corrected about John. If you keep it on one sheet with John's name at the top of it, and you write it all down, whenever something comes up about John or a project that John's working on or anything at all, you reach for the sheet of paper with his name on it, and you've got all the information right there. And you keep the sheets alphabetically, so you can always find it. And you can use a tickler file from A to Z, put all of the people with their, you can, however you feel comfortable, you want to do it with their first name, the last name, or in the case of a project, the project name. But keep it on one sheet of paper. And of course, when you run out of that one sheet, add another. But keep putting it behind the alphabetized index that you have, and you'll always be able to find it. You won't be shuffling papers on your desk. You won't be lost if someone comes in and asks you a question. You go right to your file, You've got all the information there. And you can do this with messages as well. Now, it's getting more complicated with messages because we're doing so many through email, but then you need to have a folder for each of the people, and anything concerning them would be under their name on your computer, and it would be all there. So it's key that you do that. Now let's talk a little bit about goal setting, and we're coming up a little bit to our questions in just a few minutes. So those of you that want to ask me some questions, get ready for it because it'll be coming up in a slide or two. But goal setting is key, and we all know that you need to set goals, and you need to set goals for yourself. And understand, even though we're talking about you in a business situation today, there's a lot of different places you have goals. You have family goals, you have financial goals, you have career goals, you have community goals, you have spiritual goals, educational goals. So you've got all kinds of different goals, and they should all be in categories that you're comfortable with. Nobody has to set them in all, 7 categories, but wherever you're comfortable, wherever you want those categories to be, that's where you should be setting goals. Then you also have team goals. And if they are team goals, you understand that's not your goal. It is the team's goal. The team participates in making those goals, because if they don't participate in making those goals, they're not going to buy into it. They're being told what the goal is, but they're not a part of making it. So it is very key that you do this as a team. Now, we've heard about short, medium, and long goals, but what has happened, there's been a difference in the time change of what this means. Short-term goals used to mean 6 months to a year. Now they mean 30 to 60 days. Medium goals used to mean anywhere from 2 years to maybe 4 years. Now, medium goals mean anywhere from 3 months to 12 months. And long-term goals, people used to set them as long as 5 and 10 years from now. But now, long-term goals are maybe 3 to 5 to 7 years out, because we are in such a crunched time frame. And of course, most of you know that goals have to be SMART. They have to be specific, they have to be measurable, they have to be attainable, they have to be realistic, and there's got to be a timeline or deadline. So let's just take losing weight. That's always a great example. For instance, supposing you want to lose 30 pounds. Well, that's specific. You're not saying I want to lose weight, you want to lose 30 pounds. It's measurable. You might say, okay, it's 30 pounds, and the deadline, the timeline, I want to lose that in 30 days. That's a pound a day. Is that attainable? I'm not really sure that it is, because it's not realistic. Most people realistically lose about 2 pounds a week. So that's not realistic. You'd have to stretch out the timeline. And that's what you have to do with all the goals that you get involved with. Also, you have to have your staff meetings, and it's 15 minutes a day. If you do it daily for 15 minutes, everything should be taken care of. If they're standing up, they're going to want to get out of there. When they're seated, they're comfortable. All kinds of irrelevant discussion comes up. You need to have these meetings exactly when they're supposed to be, and you need to do them with your direct reports. And this is absolutely a cardinal rule. They have to begin on time and they have to end on time, and there has to be an agenda so that the people who are attending know if they get there late. Tough. You don't wait for them. You start on time. You end on time. People have a minute or 2 minutes or 3 minutes to say their piece. If they know what's on the agenda, they know when it comes. They don't get involved in irrelevant discussion. And the other thing that's key, and that's important too, is the fact that if they have something that needs to be brought up, they can come to you or they can email you and say, I need to have this on the agenda. But if everybody knows they have just 2 minutes to say something, they'll get it out. I have been at meetings where they go on and on and on because they're telling stories and they're not relevant to getting a decision made. So make sure that your staff meeting is done in 15 minutes every day, and you shouldn't have anything come up. And if it is, it's going to be taken care of very quickly at another time during the day, and you won't be getting all those interruptions that we talked about. So, Kaylee, we are ready for some questions. Do we have any?
We certainly do. So our first question would be, how can we decline the interruptions, unnecessary interruptions, without being perceived as rude?
Well, I don't know if you're going to like my answer, but if they think you're rude, guess what? That is not your problem. That is their problem. If you say, you know, John, I'd love to answer this for you, but I'm on when I have to get this project done. If you can come back in an hour and a half or 2 hours, I'll be glad to deal with it then. Well, he doesn't want to wait that long. And when people understand that that's how you're going to deal with what is happening, they're going to learn to figure it out themselves. Or you can do something else. You can make a specific time of day that you are open for questions. You might say, anybody that has anything to discuss with me, they can come between 2 and 3, or they can come between 3 and 4. They can come between 11 and 11:15, however you want to do this. I want you to know, I did do this with a small regional airline, and they were just going out of their mind because they could never get out of, they just couldn't get out on time for anything because they had all these interruptions. We instituted this procedure where actually, because of the way it was set up, you probably couldn't do it where you are, but we had people put their questions in a paper clip kind of thing on the edge of the manager's door, and when it was time for him to do it, he would take the questions off. He would either write the answer out, he would email the person, he would call them on the phone, he would take them in their office, whatever it was, and he would answer. And we ended up saving every single person in the office of that airline 2 hours a day. And they became so productive, they made so much more money, it was unbelievable. So I'm not going to tell you they're not going to be rude, consider you rude, but that's your job. Is if it's an emergency, I know you're going to answer it. But if it's not an emergency, no, that's how you control your time. Next question, Kaylee.
Okay. Someone was wondering, what would a really good time log look like? How should the blank log form be structured?
Well, I would suggest if you are having a tangible, a real time management book, let's say, I would love to see it with the A through Z category so that you can keep everything right in front of you alphabetized. I would like to see you work with 30 days at a time. There can be the 12 months in there, but there should be 30 days at a time so that you can, for example, on your to-do list, if you don't get something done, or you get something done and it needs to be followed up in a week, then you could go to that day of the week and say, check with John about such and such. So you always are working with 30 days at a time. And what happens is when you are finished with the first week, the first 7 days, you take those 7 days out and replace another 7 days in back of day 30 or 31. So you're always dealing with 30 days at a time, and most things happen within 30 days. Or if it isn't within 30 days, then you note it on your monthly calendar on the date that it's due, or you should check back with it. And that's how a real good time management system should look.
Excellent. And then one quick follow-up. Are there time logs available in office supply stores that you know of?
Oh, absolutely. You go into an office supply store and they'll have a ton of them. I used to work with the time bank system. I don't even know if they're around anymore, but that was the one that I used for years and years and years. And you can certainly find them at any office supply store, absolutely. And if it doesn't have all the components that I just said, make it up yourself. I mean, you can add to it. But the key, I think the very important key, and I need to say this, is if there's any way you can do it with a loose leaf binder, that's the easiest because you can switch things in and out very easily. So my preference, rather than a bound time management system, is a loose leaf type of thing.
Excellent. Okay, I'll let you get back to it, Gayle, and then we'll take some more questions at the end.
Thank you so much. Okay, well, let's continue on. All these things I've been talking about will at least give you 30 minutes a day. And I can vouch, because this is not from me, these are from people who measure these kinds of things. If you will gain 30 minutes a day, that will give you 22 more 8-hour days by the end of the year. And for most normal people, not necessarily people like me who work a crazy schedule, but that's a whole extra month. So every year, my goal is to get 30 minutes better a day, and I do. And that's why when people say to me, Gayle, how do you get everything done? I mean, you're here and there and everywhere, and you're doing all these things, and you're on all these committees, and you belong to all these things. It's because every year I get 30 minutes better. Now, I know it sounds impossible, but it really, really does work. So I'm just telling you, try this. And remember, I told you the airline got 2 hours better every day for every single person. I'm talking about pilots, chief pilots, because the regular pilots weren't involved, but the chief pilot was in the office, and the administrators and the owners, and just amazing. I mean, these are not people who are office trained. These are people who are in aeronautics, who are, you know, pilots and flyers and passionate about airplanes. So if they can do it, I know you all can do this as well. So that's one of the reasons you want to look for it. And I want you to start measuring and let Gayle know whether this works or not, because I'm sure it will. Again, deadlines. Need to get deadlines for everything. And this means that you have to get agreement, because if you don't get agreement on this, in other words, you may set a deadline, but if the person that you have delegated this to does not get agreement or say, well, no, I can't do it in that time frame, and they need to give you reasons for it, you're not going to see it, or they're going to avoid doing it. So deadlines are extremely important. Now, remember I mentioned the time management system of the 1 through 31. That's what a tickler file is. For example, if somebody says to me, call me back on June 15th. On the 15th of June, I have a piece of paper that says, call so-and-so and check with them. Or you can do it electronically on your electronic calendar. That's up to you, whatever you, I still prefer paper. I'm old-fashioned. I can't help it. I just have to tell you that that's the way I am. But I can tell you that people will tell me in 6 months. For example, there are doctors that I go to that want to see me every 6 months. And so I have it. I have down, let's say 6 months from now, which would be the end of the year, I have call so-and-so for an appointment. Otherwise, believe me, I would forget it. So keep those things, everything. And you can, I don't know about you, my personal and my professional life kind of blend together because of what I do. So I have it all together. But however you would like to keep them is fine, as long as it's somewhere you can find them. You need to check it daily, because there's going to be things on there that you just forgot, or that you just said, well, you know, I didn't realize it was today, or, I mean, you may even forget an appointment that you have. So check them daily and make sure that they are easy to understand. For example, supposing you have something very important that you're supposed to do today, and you got sick, you just got really, really sick, and you couldn't come in. Well, you could go and say to someone, go to the files on my desk. If you have, let's say, a duplicate file and you take it home with you, or you've got a duplicate file on your desk. And sometimes if you are a manager, it would be a good idea to have a duplicate file. But let's just say someone can go in and find the information. For example, yesterday I talked with my son. He's back in Florida. I'm in California right now. And he needed to get my husband, who has passed away, his Social Security number. Well, I don't know it by heart, but I have it in a file in my office. So he said, well, where is it? I said, go to the left-hand side. There's a black book. And he looked it up and he found it, and he got it because we needed it for something that my husband's Social Security originally got for us. So you just need to have them. They're very, very important. You also have to have time blocks for weekly and daily activities. In other words, there are things you do every single week that are the same, and you need to block out time. For example, when I'm writing, I know I have to block out from 2 to 4 in the afternoon to write. I have a new program coming out this month, and there is a book involved and CDs and all of that, and I blocked time out to record, to write, to do all of that. If I didn't block it out, it would still be there waiting to be done. So there are time blocks that you need to make for your daily and your weekly activities. You may also want to have a time block for team meetings. Maybe we talked about staff meetings, 15 minutes, but maybe there are team meetings that you need to have twice a week, once a month. Again, block out a time. Hopefully, you are doing some strategy meetings. And let me tell you something, no one is better at strategy than the people who are doing it every single day. I remember I used to have a chain of career schools. That was one of my businesses. And it was very successful, and I thought I was the best teacher in the world. I thought no one teaches like I do. Well, guess what happened? As I opened new schools and I couldn't be in all places at all times, my teachers had to teach. I had to train them, and then, of course, they developed their own style. And guess what? Nobody missed me. Nobody missed me because they didn't know about me. They had never experienced me. And one day I was sitting there writing out the class schedules, and it usually took me about 2 hours a week to do class schedules. And one of my brand new teachers was sitting beside me, and she said, "What are you doing?" I said, "Well, I'm scheduling classes." And she said, "Well, why are you doing it like this?" And I said, "Well, I don't know. This is the way I've always done it." And she said, "Well, why don't you try this?" And you know something? She saved me an hour and a half a week. I could schedule classes in 30 minutes instead of 2 hours. And it was something that she came up with because she was like a newbie and she saw something I didn't see. So when you have strategy sessions, try to include people from every division or walk of life or position so that you get a lot of different viewpoints as to why something will work or won't work. And of course, that means what we're doing right now, training and development, that's for everybody. And texting and email. Hopefully there's no personal texting and no personal email in the office. Ha, we know that it happens, but try to keep it to a minimum. If you're using texting to reach somebody and it's business, in other words, you're trying to get somebody in the office and they're on a different floor or they're a different department or they're in a different area, or you're sending them an email because it's better than just walking to their office or getting in an elevator and going to another floor, fine. But make sure that you have these time blocks. It's very, very key. Now, this is going to offend some people, I know, but it is the 80-20 rule, and it is something that has been proven over and over again. 80% of the results come from 20% of your efforts. 20% of your people produce 80% of the work. Now, it could be reversed. You could have 80% of your people producing 20% of the work, but it's the same ratio. So I just want you to pay attention. You know who your stars are. You know who are the ones that get everything done. You know who are the ones you can count on. Yes, we would like 100% from 100%, but it usually breaks down to 80-20. So just look, and this will help you a lot to know who you should be giving what to. And figure out what's busy work. I mean, you know, I know in what you do, perfection is very important, but a lot of people get involved in busy work, work that they don't really need to do, and that they're doing, you know, this is a perfect example is in the sales arena. How much time out of 40 hours in a week do salespeople really sell? Probably 10. 30 hours of the week are, you know, getting logs lined up and who are my leads and who should I call and writing out reports. And that's why real good salespeople hire themselves. They hire themselves an assistant, because let the assistant weed out the people who are not real good quality leads. Let the assistant write out the report, because good salespeople are terrible paperwork people. They hate to fill anything out, and they'll spend hours just pushing paper because they hate to do it. So why not let them, and many good salespeople hire their own assistant. So figure out what's the busy work in your day, and don't do it. And at the end of the day, you have to ask yourself, did you do your top priority? That's the important thing. Did you do your top priority? Now, we already talked about having a single sheet to track each person and note each conversation, because people will swear to you they never said it. And I can tell you this has saved my life a lot. People will say, I never said that. And then I go back and I say, John, on May 28th, you came in here at 1 o'clock in the afternoon and this is what you said. And when they see that I have it written down in front of me, they can't deny it. And it has saved me so much aggravation, so much time, and so much money. You cannot believe it. So I want you to do this. And if people say, what are you writing down when you're in there? Just say, well, I'm writing down what we're talking about so that, you know, I have a note of it and I can track it and there's no misunderstandings. And believe me, that will shape people up as well. So again, keep them alphabetically, as I have said. And for yourself, because you're the important one here, set up appointments with yourself. That means if you promised your child you were going to go to their soccer game, you go. And if you promised your spouse or your partner that you are, going to an event with them, go. So that's important. You set up appointments. Everything is in that time lock of yours. And we all have, emergencies that happen. But when you keep 80 to 90% of your appointments, that's important. So how do you start your day? And I have to tell you, I've got a bunch of animals. I love them dearly. I start my day with 3 little faces staring at me, and it just makes me smile. And then I get up and I do what I have to do and get them ready, and then I'm exercise, because that sets my day and sets my tone. So think about how you are setting your day. Now, helping your staff, help them set their goals. Look at their to-do list to see whether they are doing some busy work that's not important. Help them prioritize. I mean, you learned what to do. Make them do their ABCs. Ask if they have any questions. Do they know how to do everything? Do they have any suggestions for you as to what they've been asked to do? Do they have a suggestion to make it better or faster? And then help them focus, because that's very, very important. And plan your day the night before, because as I said earlier, it walks you through the day and it helps answer somebody when they ask you the major question. Now, one of the things that I do want to talk about here, and I don't have it on the slide, is delegation, because delegation is important, and delegation serves a purpose. It helps you train people to do things that you should no longer be doing. And when you delegate, what's important is look for somebody who is asked to do it, look for somebody who has the skills to do it, or look for somebody that you personally want to train to do it, so you'll see whether they have the competency to do it. But just remember one thing, delegation is not do you do it like I do. Delegation is do you do it well enough. And again, using examples when I had all my animals, I used to have with the kids 5 dogs and 3 cats, and the kids had their duties. They had to feed the animals, they had to change kitty litter. The animals didn't care who fed them. I used to mix it a certain way, and I thought, oh, they're not doing it. Guess what? When the dogs saw the food, they ate it. So you have to figure out how to let go of it must be done this way. So here are some things that are important for you personally. Positive thinking. We know that 5 minutes of negative thinking takes the body 24 hours to recover from. So you don't have 24 hours. You've got to think positively. Stop thinking negatively. We all experience 100 abrasive incidents a day. That's when somebody goes, and you just go, oh, I can't believe this. And it could be not having enough gas in the car, or somebody ate something in the refrigerator before you got there, or it's hitting every red light. That's 3,000 a month. So we need to have a way to cope with them. But no, they're coming. They're coming. That's just called life. So for every negative withdrawal that we make, we always say there has to be 4 to 5 emotional positive deposits. So be aware of that. Very important to think positively. And stress, because that's what lack of time management will give you, is stress comes from high demand and no control. That's where it comes from. It doesn't come from, working too many hours or having a family and not being able to get everything done or taking extra classes or anything like that. It comes from high demand and low control. When you have no say over how something is, that's where stress comes from. And if you have no say, forget about it, because you can't do anything about it anyway. So the relationship between stress and time mastery is that you take the time to change the things you do control, but you let go of the things that you can't control. And you do the same thing as you did with your interruptions. You identify your stressors. What is happening to you every single day that is causing you stress? Now, they may be people, they may be your family, they may be friends, they may be projects, but identify them so you know. And the best stress reducer is deep breathing. Now, there's a lot of other things I can tell you, but we're not doing a stress seminar today, but this is important for you for time mastery. So for your habits, you need to learn shortcuts. You have to find ways to cut corners, and you have to ask your staff for better procedures. And when I say don't cut corners, I mean you don't want to cut quality, but there are things that you can do to learn shortcuts, just like you can go a back road to where you're going and people who are new cannot find it. And you see, it's important to take time for physical fitness. It's important, whatever you do. Now, I like really energetic things like kickboxing and step aerobics and, power fusion and things like that. But whether you do Pilates or yoga or weightlifting or jogging or biking or swimming, it doesn't matter. But it raises your endorphins, and it does give you better energy and better focus, and that's what we're asking for. You can see it down there with more energy and mental awareness. But I want to tell you the difference between diet and exercise. Diet is for pounds, exercising is for inches, and 1 pound equals 3,500 calories. So in order, that's why I say 1 to 2 pounds a week. If you take away 500 calories from what you eat every day, you will lose 1 pound at the end of the week. And if you have an extra pound you added on, it's because you ate an extra 3,500 calories. So you just need to know to do that. So again, to focus and concentrate, remember you can do many things, but you can only focus on one. So use your time blocks and get good time estimates. And you will, after you do your time log, you will have an essential idea. So we need to say, for life management, be present, don't have your mind somewhere else, leave your problems at home, no matter what they are, and we all have them. Understand that your staff has problems, and you need to be very, very simpatico with that. But you need to learn to be assertive. Assertiveness means you have the right to tell someone something as long as you don't hurt them. Aggressiveness is you have the right to state your feelings and opinions, but you don't care about anybody else's. So in this process, hopefully you have identified your biggest trap. Remember that time is life. Remember that you can take a mental vacation. You can go off somewhere for 3 minutes in the middle of the day if it's really rough and say, okay, what is the island that I'm on? And I'm in this hammock being swung by and fanned by my favorite fantasy, whatever that is. You can do that and come back to the present, do your deep breathing, and you will feel just fantastic at the end. And lastly, your dead time. This is a skill. What is the dead time? I get an entire book read from Florida to California, and then of course I get another one read from California to Florida. So, and when I'm waiting in a terminal, I do a lot of writing. So that's where I really wrote my first 3 books. Was waiting, because it was just waiting all the time. It will give you confidence, it will give you competence, and it will give you a richer life. So value your time and use your time in the car for personal development. Listen to CDs. It's an education. I think it was a long time ago, maybe Earl Nightingale said, if you spend an hour a day learning a subject, by the end of the year you will know more about it than most people who have a college degree in it. And at the end of 3 years, you will be considered the reigning expert in it. So use your car. I listen to at least 12 CDs a week. I read a book a week. I read a lot of periodicals, all very important. And at the end of the day, write one positive thing that's happened to you, write one thing that you've accomplished towards your goal, and write what matters most in your life right now. And you will have a fantastic, fantastic management of your time. And up there you see my email, and you know, if you want to go to my website, it's livingregretfree.com, just like it sounds, livingregretfree.com. And you see the SOB, that stands for Spunky Old Broad. That's who I am. And I'd love to take your questions. So, Kaylee, I'm going to turn it back to you.
Fabulous. Okay, we have quite a few questions. One person wanted your opinion on staff meetings. Should they be weekly or daily? They think it seems too much of a burden to do daily meetings, but what is your take on that?
Well, I would leave it up to the person because you know your situation better than I. I will only tell you that daily meetings will keep your problems to a minimum. So if you want to do a quick, that's why I said 15-minute meetings. But if you think that twice a week is good, well, I would think that once a week might be a little too little. But I would like to see a minimum of twice a week. But if you do it daily, it's going to solve a lot of your issues.
Okay, thank you. On the topic of meetings again, if a topic is raised during a staff meeting that is obviously going to take a long time, do we address it or use the time to set up another time for that specific topic and delegate staff to work on different views for the topic?
I would say now, first of all, remember, I told you should have an agenda. So if that is not on the agenda and someone brings it up, then you say, it's not on the agenda, we don't have time to discuss it today. However, we can meet tomorrow morning at 8:15 and we can schedule 45 minutes for it. Let's just say that it's a very, you know, a deep question. Then those who want to be there for that 8:15 meeting or need to be there will come in then. But if they have come to you and said, this is an important thing that we need to talk about and I want it on the agenda or I need to have it on the agenda, then you adjust the time accordingly. However, it all still has to have a deadline. So if it's an important issue, then you, as the manager, need to say, how long should this really take? Should it take 15 minutes? Should it take 30 minutes? Should it take 45 minutes? But know at the end of whatever time you have decided, that's the end. A conclusion must be reached because that is one thing you do control, the meeting. You're the manager. So that's something that's in your hands. So I think you need to do both.
Definitely. Another question regarding meetings. How much time or effort should you put in for planning your agendas for daily meetings?
Well, again, I think the 15 minutes is really okay. Now, again, it depends. You know, I don't know how everybody's, you know, managerial duties are, but let's say that you have 10 people working for you. Some of you may have 50 or 100. I don't know. But let's just say you had 10 people, and let's say that you give every single one of those 10 people 5 to 10 minutes in the week. So you would have a meeting with them. They will feel connected to you, but again, you control the time. And when they know you're serious about the time, you know, people will push you as far as you let them. So you control the time, and when your 10 minutes is up, your 10 minutes is up. So I would say it's an individual thing, but again, I think staff meetings, and I'm talking about, you know, key players here, needs to be daily.
Okay. Another quick question about meetings. You may have already sort of addressed this. Most meetings start with asking if there are any other items that should be added to the agenda. How does that fit into the strategy for meetings? Should this wait till the end for the next meeting? What are your thoughts on that?
Well, again, you as the manager send out the agenda ahead of time. I mean, if you have, let's just say, let's really be ridiculous and say you have a daily meeting. Okay, at the end of the day, 5 o'clock, 4 o'clock, 8 o'clock, whatever the end of the day is, you send out the agenda. Everybody that's coming to the meeting gets the agenda. If they want something that's not on there to be put on there, it's their responsibility to get it to you before the next morning. And that's it.
Yeah, that would address that for sure.
I know I'm being tough here, but guys, this is a time mastery and a time making time work for you. So I'm being tough because that's what you need if you're going to have another 30 minutes in your day.
Definitely, and that would make things run smoother as well. Okay, so if you're talking about priorities now, if you're working on one particular priority project for a person and then another person approaches you with an even more urgent project, how do you determine which is more important to complete first?
That is your personal decision. Again, remember in one of the very first slides I said, if you have an interruption, you must decide, is it more important than what you are already doing? So if somebody comes to you with a project or a question or whatever that is more important than what is going on right now, yes, you take it. And that is your decision to make because you know what the priorities are and you know what the pressures are. So it's not that you're not going to finish the other, but if the other is more important, which you determine, then you take it.
Okay, excellent. Then another one basically is has to do with priorities. How do you feel about multitasking? Do you think it's a good thing or a bad thing?
Well, remember what I said about focus. You can do many things at one time, but you can only focus on one. So if there are things that are automatic for you, in other words, some people can be on the telephone, they can be typing, they can be signing a paper, they can be doing everything at once. Those are no-brainers. That's fine. That's multitasking. But if there's something that you need to focus on, I mean, it's that important. It needs your attention. Remember, I also said be present. Then you do that one thing at that time. I mean, many people, Kaylee, really don't even know how they got to work. I mean, they know they drove there, they know they put their foot on the brake and on the gas, and they maybe have changed gears or something, but they don't know how they got there because that's multitasking. They're used to it. But they better concentrate on the red light and the stop signs.
Yes, I'm sort of multitasking at the moment and trying to keep up here with all the questions. So sorry if I missed yours. Some people have asked that you refer to your last slide again. They sort of thought that you had gone over that pretty quickly. They wanted to know what you should do, the 3 things you should do at the end of the day. Just
okay, at the end of the day, they want the last slide again. Oh no, we're trying to get, there we go. Okay, write one positive thing. Now I happen to write 3. In other words, I can always find something that I think is great at the end of the day. So I write down 3 things that have happened to me. Now, it might be that somebody gave me a compliment. It might be that I made a new friend. It might be that I finished writing a project. It could be whatever. And it can be personal. It can be professional. But write down. Remember what I said, when you write something down, the mind considers it a completion. So I do 3 things. I'm asking you for only 1. So 1 positive thing. Then what's the 1 thing you accomplished towards your goal? Because so many people say, I don't know where the day went. I didn't do anything intelligent today. I didn't get anything accomplished. So I always write down 1 thing I accomplished towards my goal. Now, remember, let's say your goal is, I'm going to use a book. That's easy for me to talk about. Now, many people say they want to write a book, but they don't know, I can't write a book. How am I going to do this? But everybody can write a page a day. A page a day is 365 pages at the end of the year, of which 50% are probably good. So what is the 1 thing that you did today that accomplished towards your goal? And that is, and I can tell you, since I'm a goal setter, the best I have done is 23 days out of 30. So here I am that I teach this stuff, I do this stuff, I practice this stuff, and the best that I've done is 23 days out of 30. So there are going to be days that go by and you think, yeah, what did I do today? But if you're conscious of it, at least you're going to get up to maybe 2 dozen or so. And then what matters most in your life right now? Because I know some people are sacrificing their personal life, their home life, their family life. What matters most in your life right now? I want you all, I'm not telling you not to do a good job at what you do, but there's another part of your life that keeps you balanced. And I have to say, in particular in my case, I was married 45 years before my husband passed away, and he was a grounder for me because as many honors and awards and wonderful things that happened to me, for example, I was selected Woman of the Year, Businesswoman of the Year, and nobody was home when I got home, and I left this big trophy, you know, on the etagere as you walked in, and I went off to do the grocery shopping, and I said, gee, I wonder if anybody knows I'm Woman of the Year, you know, as I'm picking things off the grocery shelf. And I came back, and my husband was sitting or standing on the front porch with this trophy in his hands, shaking his head from one side to the other to say, I can't believe you won this. So that was a grounding, and he was very important in my life, even though I worked a lot and had a lot going on. People thought, oh, I neglected him. It was fine for him because it was a life balance for us both. So ask yourself, what matters most in your life right now? And that will help put your horrible day into perspective.
That's very true. Okay, we have a few more questions if we can. What is your suggestion for resolution of your most productive time to that of a supervisor or manager? In other words, what if you're a morning person but your supervisor is an evening person? How do you deal with that?
I would go in and ask them. I would talk to them, and I would say, you know, there are certain things I need to talk to you about sometimes, and I know that you know, you're better at the end of the day. I'm better at the beginning of the day. So what is agreeable to you for me to come in and approach you? Ask them. They will tell you. So it may not be your best time, but after all, you're asking a manager for something, so you want to go at their best time and ask, and they will tell you.
Excellent. And then we sort of have a summarizing question as our final question. Does mastering time imply doing things the same way or developing habits?
Well, there are, you know, habits that will be good habits, and there are habits that are bad habits. So, you know, I would have to qualify it by saying time mastery is making sure that at the end of the day, you have used every bit of it in the best way that you can, and that at that moment, you cannot think of anything you would have changed, done better, done faster, or asked for more input on. And if you can do that, you will really have mastered your time. But it takes 21 days to form a habit. So, you know, if you've been doing something a certain way for 10 years, it's not going to be changed overnight.
Right. Do you have a website, Gayle?
Yes. It's livingregretfree.com, and it's going to be a little bit different than what you think. It's not going to be this business website that I'm talking about today. It's really going to be about a lot about life balance, and it's going to be a lot about, you know, how to just how to do things better, and so I'm hoping people will enjoy it. I also have a newsletter that people can subscribe to. It goes out every Monday, and it's very, you know, digital. It's very easy to read, and if they want to sign up for that, they certainly can do that. It's free, and they get it every single Monday.
All right, excellent. Thank you so much, Gayle. I know that I will definitely be benefiting from some of your helpful hints. So if you have any questions that you were too shy to ask, definitely email Gayle at, you can see your email address there, gayle@gaylecarson.com. And
remember to spell the Gayle right, so, you know, it gets to me.
That's right. We hope you enjoyed this presentation. I would like to thank our sponsor once again, Unity Lab Services, without whom this webinar series would not be possible. Next month, please mark your calendars for Wednesday, July 11th, the week after the July 4th week, because we know a lot of you will be on holiday, when professional speaker Edie Rather is our presenter for Getting Employees to Give Their All, How to Create an Engaged Workforce in Your Lab. Watch your email for more details. Thank you again for taking time out of your busy schedule to join us. We hope to see you back here next month, and I'm hoping Jeff will be back to speak with you. Thank you all.